Welcome back to Season 2 of The Core, where we're planting the seeds to financial success. I'm Colten Hibbs, Education Credit Union's Financial Health Coordinator and your host. Today, I am joined by Meghan Williams from West Texas A&M University. Meghan is the ECU Buff Smart Program Coordinator on campus at WT. Meghan, tell us a little bit about ECU Buff Smart.
Well, ECU Buff Smart is our money management program on campus for students, and we provide that education through workshops, through money management boot camps, through one-on-one coaching sessions with our peer financial coaches that are students that are trained themselves. They're also students going through college just like every other student on campus, and they are trained and certified to be able to talk about anything money. And so we tell students we can talk about anything money, we just don't give away money.
The goal of the program is for students essentially to leave WT with little to no student loan debt, and they can leave with a diploma and, not a bill, right?
Right. Yes. And so we really push, paying for college and how to get scholarships and how to pay, maybe not take out loans, maybe have a job, that kind of thing. But even if you do have to take out a loan, have that plan when you graduate so you can pay it off as soon as possible.
Exactly. At least graduate prepared to take on the realities of life and your new career.
Yes.
Great. So let's just dive right on into navigating the cost of college. Our topic for today, and the question on everybody's minds, at least once in their life, is why is college so expensive?
Well, for one thing, you're paying to be educated by the best. And so they are educating you to be the best in your field. They are the best in your field, whatever you choose to study. And so they are educating you to also be the best in the field. And so you're paying for that. Also, it's one of those things that I will say state funding for universities has decreased. And so the universities have to step up and replace those state funding funds to be able to function. And so that kind of also plays a role in it. But also, being at WT, I do have to put in a plug for that. We do try to keep costs low. Mm-hmm. We try to be we have just as good as education as anywhere else at a lower cost.
Absolutely.
And so with that, we have the no textbook initiative going on, that kind of thing. And we haven't raised tuition in a couple of years and that kind of thing. And so WT
is definitely doing their part to keep costs for students low. And like you said, giving the best and still be able to provide. I believe it was a couple of years ago, we were third in the best for our nursing program at WT. It was a fantastic thing. And still keeping those costs low. I do remember a talk from Dr. Wendler at one point. He was like, from all of the public state colleges in Texas, we're third from the bottom in cost, but we're in the top 10 for quality of education. So that's an incredible achievement. And yes, college is so expensive. And you touched on it partially, is when state funding or government funding is reduced, well, to be able to provide the best, to be able to make sure that there is lab equipment for you to use and that you do have the things that you need to get a quality education, that does have to come from somewhere. Yes. And so when government funding is reduced, that burden shifts then to the student, essentially.
Yes.
And so, but that's when we get the opportunity to do scholarships, work studies, grants, and loans. But we say loans with that tone, like loans. But they're not all bad, right?
Right.
What's the difference between federal loans or private loans, things like that?
So federal loans are provided by the government. And so there are several different types of loans that you can have as far as federal. And usually there is a fixed interest rate. It depends on the year how much the interest rate is. But there's unsubsidized loan and subsidized loans. Subsidized loans, once you take it out, the government pays the interest while you're in school. So it stays the same amount once you take it out by the time you graduate. The unsubsidized loans, however, the interest starts accruing once you take it out. However, both those loans, you do not have to pay back until you have a 6 months grace period after you quit going to school or graduate.
Absolutely. So you can kind of sort of have that job, get into that and earn that money,
get
hopefully,
that plan,
fingers crossed.
Yes. And so you have that chance to start earning money and
how do students begin applying for student loans?
Okay, so student loans, they do have to be applied through the FAFSA. And so that is a big deal this year. And I will say, if you still have not and you're going in the fall, just get that done. It's a lot different than it was last year, but they're working out all the kinks, and it's getting better every day. And so if you do have trouble with that, come in, let us know, and we'll try to figure it out.
And that's why resources like BuffSmart exist. Yes.
And so we're right across from the financial aid office. If we can't figure it out, we go get somebody from financial aid to help us figure it out.
Let's work together.
And so there's been some students, unfortunately, they've had to sit in our office while we figure it out, but it gets figured out one way or the other. And so I will say the new FAFSA form is a lot easier to fill out.
Good.
But it is working out kinks.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've heard through the grapevine so far. I don't envy the students entering into college, trying to navigate the FAFSA this year. But the FAFSA is one of those essential tools. The free application for federal student aid is how not only many colleges determine who gets what scholarships and funding, but also how much you can get in financial aid packages. Are scholarships applied for the same way? Do they still do the FAFSA, or are there different avenues for those?
We highly recommend to complete the FAFSA application, because sometimes scholarships, if you have need, you have to have need to get that scholarship. And so if you show any kind of need, which most students do, you can get that scholarship. Now, if you don't fill out the FAFSA, they can't award that scholarship.
Because they don't know what needs you have.
And even if you did not receive any grants or anything like that, you can still get those scholarships. And so if you feel like you're not going to get, if you feel like your parents make too much money and you're not going to get those grants, or you did not qualify for those grants, there is opportunity for those scholarships. So yes, make sure you fill out that FAFSA, and it does have to be completed every year.
Yes, that was a surprise to me a long time ago. And I'm like, I have to do this again.
Yes,
okay, yeah.
Yes.
Now, how do students and families effectively compare financial aid packages? Like, oh, this is what you get here, this is what you get there. How does that comparison work?
You're looking at overall net cost, and I will say different colleges have different award packages, which is what you get as far as grants, loans, and scholarships. And so when you're looking at that, it's kind of hard to explain, because like I said, the universities they look different. Some will calculate the net cost, and the net cost is what you're going to be paying out of college. They're just going to put the grants and scholarships in the net cost, and then the loans, because the loans you have to pay back. Some put the loans all in with it. And so you have to be very careful when you're looking at that when you're looking at overall net cost. Don't include those loans, because you are going to be paying back those loans eventually.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, they can help cover the costs while you're in school
right now,
and that kind of thing, but you are going to have to be paying that back. So I personally don't like to include that in the net cost.
Because,
and so that's looking at that. Also, if there's any fine print on those award letters, that kind of thing, make sure you read those, because sometimes it does say where the loans are, you will have to pay those back, where it doesn't look like it on the award letter.
There we go. That is a good, have a second set of eyes, maybe look at this.
Yes.
Because people can get really excited by large numbers, and then reading the fine print can deflate some. Yeah.
And I'm just going to put another plug in for WT. Looking at those net costs, a lot of times some of these other schools are, even though you don't get as much in scholarships, if you're looking at a private school and getting a $20,000 scholarship, where at WT you may be getting a $3,000 scholarship, your net costs may be still cheaper at WT than
going to a private university.
Yeah. And so that's one reason to look at that net cost and kind of figure it up yourself. We've been looking at with students a lot.
I imagine you see some crazy things. Yes.
And so even if whoever's listening, even if you have a student that's not really looking at WT, we'll still help you out, because we'll look at that and look at all
a rising tide lifts all ships.
We'll look at all the universities that the student has applied for and see what the net cost is and see what the best is, because I will say we don't have all majors, and some students want to go somewhere else that has a major that WT doesn't have, and
exactly.
that kind of thing.
Relative to them, or a graduate program or something like that. Yes.
So.
Now, what are some of the most significant costs? Everybody thinks college and tuition and fees, but what else are the major significant costs that future students should be considering whenever they're looking at their university of choice?
Overall living expenses. And so, are you going to have a car? Does your school have public transportation? WT does not have much public transportation. And
the campus keeps getting bigger. It's a longer walk to getting to where you're going.
And so it's one of those things to kind of look at is, can you not have a car? Can you use public transportation that's mostly free? Also, just what's the cost of living at where you're going to college? And what are you going to be paying for it? Do you need a laptop? Do you need, other
basic
things?
equipment?
Yes.
And laundry service, things like that. Just little things that we sort of take for granted when we're at home. Like who's getting your shampoo and conditioner and skincare products and all the things that you use. Now that sort of shifts to you. And then on top of that, is it walkable? Can you get to the store to get all your things and all of that stuff?
And there's also, I will say, every university has to put out kind of like what their overall costs are. And that will also include it should include overall transportation. What's an estimate of what that would cost? Yes, it's different for every student, but they do have to post those on those websites. Sometimes they're a little hard to find, but they can be found on each university on their website because they're required to put those personal expenses and transportation costs.
Good to know. So they can do some little research and background searching on their own before they start asking those targeted questions. But then also, textbooks, but not a WT. And so at least coming up in the future, right? So and explain the textbook program.
The textbook program, for all core classes, they will not have a textbook cost. And so that will help for the first couple of years. Now, when they get more into
their specialized major,
yes, they may have to pay for some textbooks. But textbooks are a big cost. And so it's one of those things, making sure that, when you are preparing for class and that kind of thing, looking at the syllabus and seeing if it's optional or if you actually need it.
You just brought back a core memory, read the syllabus. Every read the syllabus.
Students, read the syllabus. It has a lot on there.
It has everything you need to know.
Yes. And so students read the syllabus because...
send the syllabus to your parents. There you go. Mom will keep you on track. Dad will keep you on track. You ready for your test next week?
That is true. And, sometimes faculty, they give you that syllabus for a reason. And when you go and ask them something that's on the syllabus, they get a little perturbed. So,
been there.
Yes.
Now, how do families and students sort of plan ahead for those living expenses or textbooks for their specialized things? How do they sort of plan ahead for that? Do you recommend that families sit down and budget together? Do they use on-campus resources like BuffSmart? What does that planning look like?
I think they could sit down together if they feel confident that they can budget and that kind of thing. Also, they can come into our office and talk to us, and because we've done this enough that we kind of think about other things that they may not think about. And so that's something we can do at the BuffSmart office. We can also do that through Zoom if they can't come into the office.
Send an email, schedule an appointment.
Yes. I will say it's super easy to schedule an appointment if you go to the WT website. Go to the search bar, search BuffSmart, click on BuffSmart website. It's right there. Click to make an appointment, and you can make an appointment on there. And if, like I said, you can be a prospective student or not even looking at WT and come see us.
And come talk.
We'll let you come. But yeah, sitting down, planning as a family, thinking it through as a family. What can the parents contribute? Can they contribute? And so making sure and filling out that FAFSA and making sure it fill it out as early as possible.
Yes.
It opens in October, and so even if you're a senior in high school this year, coming in senior, Make sure that you complete that FAFSA.
Work with your high school counselor. They're excited to see you.
Mm-hmm.
I say excited. That might be pushing it. But they want to see you and make sure you succeed. So if you're a senior, like talk to your high school counselor. Talk to Buff Smart. You're coming somewhere.
Yes. And it is a requirement for high school seniors to complete the FAFSA.
There we go. That's
so. Yes.
Now, say we did the things we planned. Now we're here. We're at WT or wherever we are. And are there ways to I miscalculated? Are there ways to sort of reduce costs or manage finances while we're in school? Like, hay's in the barn, we're here, but now I'm surprised by a bill or I'm surprised by how expensive this all is. What can we do in real time? Are there ways to reducing college costs or managing those expenses while you're in school?
Yes, we always have those unexpected expenses or, yes, sometimes we come in thinking it's going to be a lot less. Mm-hmm. But it's also, one of those things you can come talk to us and we can see maybe there's more funding to be available. Like I said, we do work very closely with financial aid and scholarships. And so maybe we can find, a little bit extra. If not, we can definitely, set you up on a plan budget,
yes.
Pay off that unexpected expense or just make a plan going forward.
And you can also verify that the students are availing themselves of all the resources that are available to them, because there are things that they might not know that WT provides for free that you're paying for in your tuition, but you're going outside to pay for this fee and, but WT does this for you. And
yes. So, and that's a big thing, there's a lot of services on campus, like tutoring, career services to help you find a part-time job.
Yes.
There is advising that helps you make sure you stay on track for 4 years. There's disability services. So if you have a documented disability, make sure and use them because they are paid for in your student service fees. And so you're paying for those.
Yes.
So make sure and use them. And sometimes if you don't know what to ask, just go talk to them and see hey, I'm not sure. I feel like I should be doing something, but I don't know what to ask. Mm-hmm. And so they'll help you go through that.
There we go. That's what they're there for.
And so don't be afraid to ask or go help.
It's more than just really school. It's a community and school at the same time. So we
want to help you succeed.
Absolutely. What are some common mistakes that you've seen as students and families navigate paying for college? What are the most common things that you've seen families do?
I will say sometimes when they get the refund check, that comes out, the first week of classes or a little after, they're like, oh, and they've never seen this much money. And they get this money and they're like, oh, I can go spend it. Yes. Where it's for your living expenses and that kind of thing. And then they come to us mid-semester and we don't have any more money. And okay.
I'm eating ramen for the next 2 months if I don't do
something. you did have a refund check. What happened with that? Well, and then you find out, yes.
Seen it.
Yes.
What's just happened?
Or, my new designer purse or, stuff like that. And so it's just being aware, when you get that's supposed to last you 4 months to help you with those living expenses and that kind of thing. And if you don't have an emergency fund, use that refund check to make an emergency fund.
$500. I say it, you hear me say it all the time, bless you. But at least $500.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, it pays for a speeding ticket between Amarillo and Canyon. And so, but yes. So yes, being a little wiser. That's one of the basically just sort of spending a little too freely without that planning in place is the most common mistake that I've seen, and I think you too.
Yes.
So what are some resources that are available? So again, you mentioned connecting them with financial aid and maybe finding some additional funds, but what are some other resources that are available to students on campus that are struggling to afford while they're enrolled?
Well, we do have some emergency funding, and that is they do have to apply online, and it goes before a committee. And so they have to they decide if it's worthy to get the emergency funding. And then they can get that. And that is, you don't have to pay back or anything like that. That's a one-time deal to help students kind of get over a hump or that kind of thing.
Because they also realize this is a population, generally speaking, of late teens, early 20s who are navigating the world newly on their own and so might make some mistakes. So those kind of Hail Mary passes are available to students. Very good.
Yes, and we look, when students apply for that, we look holistically of like, okay, financial aid, are they awarded the max? Are they, is there any extra scholarships that they qualify? That kind of thing, to see if we can help them that way.
Absolutely. So. Now, we were brought together financial wellness, financial literacy education. How does that play a role in helping students make informed decisions about college finances?
Yes. And so that does play a big role, because you're just more informed. Because I will say, when I went to college, I kind of knew about budgeting. I kind of knew about savings. I kind of knew about that. But also, I just checked the boxes on taking out student loans. And so, like, I learned the hard way. Like, when I had to go pay it back, I'm like, oh, wow. Yep. I have a lot of student loans, and I had no clue until I had to go pay it back. And it was kind of like, I really didn't need all this.
Yes. And like, where did this go?
And so it's just it helps you be aware of where you can find, where you can look for your student loans and maybe pay them back, or where you can say, okay, I have this much, or I only need this much. And so that awareness of that, and then also just budgeting, and just also, in our money management boot camp, we talk about overcoming financial obstacles. Yes. And, Colten really does a good job of explaining, like, here's a lot of common mistakes that people make. And so hopefully you can learn before you make those mistakes.
And sort of navigate for yourself.
Yes.
Like, you have those tools, like, well, I've heard this could happen, and this is what I should be doing. It just gives you that knowledge base to where, even if you probably aren't going to make the best decision, hopefully you can sort of game it to where you can have the best outcome for yourself.
Yes. And we all make mistakes. We
Absolutely.
Do. And it's going to happen.
Yes.
And which I always tell my children, when we're not making mistakes, we're not learning.
Ooh, I like
and
that.
So,
okay.
And so it's okay to make a mistake, but it's how you go about correcting that mistake. Correct. And sometimes it's harder than others,
or it takes longer.
Different mistakes, but as long as we're making an effort to correct that, that's good. And so it's a big deal. Also, just making a plan and goal setting. I've found a lot of students don't know how to goal set, or they never had to goal set, and so just writing down those goals and figuring out those goals.
And especially like long-term goals. Like, there's like goals for like, the next 6 weeks, or like, the next, but like, when we're talking financial goals, we're talking like 6 months, we're talking a year, 2 years, 3 years.
4 years.
Yeah. Are you going to have to go to graduate school to really like go into the career that you want to go into? Then you should be planning freshman year at WT, like what your graduate education financially sort of prepare you for. Because a lot of student loan debt comes from graduate level education, and that can be a problem, right? Yes. What advice do you have for students and families who are concerned about graduating with student loan debt?
If they have student loan debt, it's fine. But the biggest thing is just having a plan to pay it back. And I would say pay it back as soon as possible. And I tell students that come in that have taken out loans, when they come in to make a plan, still live like a college student and get it paid off as soon as possible. This year, the average debt of a WT student is only $20,000.
That's fantastic.
And so if you can put quite a bit down, you can have that paid off in 2 to 3 years easily.
Yes.
If you have that plan, if you're sticking on a budget, you're living like a college student. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Don't go buy a new car.
Yes. Especially in this market right now. What are you doing?
And maybe hold off on buying that house if possible. I feel like buying a house is a good investment, but if you don't have the money or the emergency fund before you buy a house, don't do it.
Then you're asking for a lot of trouble, especially because something's going to happen with your house. You're going to need a new water heater. You're going to have all these other expenses.
Yes.
And so just set the best foundation for yourself.
Because life does happen, and sometimes you have to hold off on paying back that student loan, but at least you can get that get that taken care of, and then continue on.
It's one less headache.
And so concerns with graduating with student loan debt are, I
I really am encouraged when I go into high school classrooms of like, no, we're not doing student loans. And I'm like, hold on. It's okay so long as you have a plan to pay it back in place. And it is, and again, WT borrowers are lower than the national average by a significant amount, which is so fantastic. And so again, we have programs in place that help students that build a plan, connect them with resources that they can use. And it makes life that much easier. And it helps them maybe achieve those goals that they want, like a house, like a car, all those things that they want a little sooner and a little more holistically without straining or having all these things, but being so stressed at the end of the day.
Yes. And also finding that balance when you're going through school. And so I do see some students, they're so set on not having student loans. They work so much, then they fail their classes. But sometimes it's like, that's when it's okay. Like, go ahead and take out that student loan and get through your classes. That way you're not taking them again and paying for them again.
Exactly, yes.
Because then you're losing money. And so make sure that you can find that balance, and that's different for everybody.
Exactly. And again, there are resources to help you and sort of navigate that. Now, my favorite question. Can you share success stories or examples of students who have effectively navigated the cost of college?
Yes. I've had students that start paying back their student loans while they're in college and get that done because they've come in and they're like, they kind of felt like they had to, and then they're like, they found different scholarships and stuff like that and get involved on campus. And so they get a ton of scholarships their last 2 years. And so then they can pay back some of that loan that they put back. I had a parent come up to me at an orientation this summer even. He's like, my son applied for like 200 scholarships and now he has so much scholarships he doesn't even know what to do with.
That is so awesome.
And I'm like, that's what I tell students on applying for scholarships. Apply until you're not going to want to apply anymore, but you keep on applying.
Yes.
And so, it's things like that. And it's, when we see international students that, they are trying to pay, they can't get federal aid. And a lot of scholarships they're limited to.
Yep.
And so they don't have, I had a peer financial coach.
Yes.
I was an international student.
Yes.
And so she was able to really get involved and get those scholarships and pay for her last 2 years. And,
she graduated college with $0 in student loan debt. That's so fantastic.
And so it can be done. It does take a lot of hard work.
Yes.
A lot of hard work.
And that's what we don't want to minimize because because when you apply for a scholarship, you're one of many. And so it takes 200 scholarships, like 200 applications to get that money that you need. And you're going to hear a lot of no. So have a support system in place to like whenever you hear the no. But at the end of the day, it is so worth it because I've mentioned it several times. So you've heard me say it before. But this is the most expensive thing you're probably going to purchase in your life outside of your home. And you can't get a scholarship for a home. You can't just apply for I have need and get a house, but you can for your education. And this is so fantastic.
And it's one of those things, if you're needing motivation to apply for scholarships, think about it as if you spend an hour applying for 5 scholarships and you get one of those and it's $500. How much did you just make an hour? That's $500. Where else can you apply?
There it is. I like that picture.
$500 an hour. And so, like you said, scholarships, this is the only time you can apply for free money.
Yes.
COVID was an exception with that, but that's been the only exception ever.
Exactly, yes.
And so, but apply until
you're funded, really.
Yes, until you're funded. Continue to apply throughout college.
And what happens with those scholarship dollars? You apply for all these scholarships, you get all of this money, and then, my semester's paid for. What happens with the rest of that money that you're awarded? You
get refunded. And I do want to clarify, if you do receive grants and stuff like that by the state of Texas, they cannot over-award you. And so just be aware, if you are getting in a lot of scholarships, your grants may be lowered, but if you have all those scholarships to pay for it anyways, then you're good to go.
Exactly. Anything you want our audience to know before we conclude today?
Basically, college is hard and funding college is hard.
Yes.
But it can be done. And it's kind of one of those things. Do you want to work hard now? Or do you want to work hard later as far as student loan debt goes?
Absolutely.
And so And so it's hard, but you have resources. There's resources all over campus. Don't be afraid to talk to somebody, faculty, staff,
yes,
peers, anybody.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And you've heard me, again, one of my important things, talk about money.
Yes.
But especially when you're on a college campus, because that is a community of people who know the system and who regularly navigate that system and are there to help you. You're literally paying for them to help you. And so, Meghan, again, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. You've been wonderful.
For having me.
We also appreciate you, our wonderful audience, for tuning in. Don't forget, you can catch the latest release of The Core every other Wednesday on YouTube or Spotify. And with that, we'll see you next time on The Core.